Ever since I began watching adult videos on my phone, I realized it quickly became an obsession. It got to the point where I couldn't even sit in the living room without scrolling through clips. Before I knew it, it turned into a constant habit, something I couldn't shake. Then it hit me I think my 60-year-old stepmother had noticed. After that, things started to get strange. She began walking around the house in looser clothing, sometimes even see-through. At first it was subtle, but soon it became more obvious, almost as if she was aware of the effect it had on me. At first I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, but each time she passed by, her outfit seemed to get more revealing. She would sit on the couch with her back to me or bend over a little too often in the kitchen. I began to wonder if it was intentional. She never said anything, and neither did I, but the tension was impossible to ignore. It made me question everything. Was she playing some kind of game, or was my mind distorting things because of my addiction? Whatever the case, it felt real, and then one bold move shocked me completely. One day she was walking around in a white, completely see-through skirt. I could see everything, her chest, her body clear as day. I was, as usual, watching adult videos on my phone, but acted like I didn't notice. When I finally lowered my phone and looked up, I saw her bent over in front of me, pretending to search for something under the table. Her bare backside was right in my face. I was flustered, thinking my arousal would burst through my pants. Then, when she realized I had seen everything, she looked at me and asked, "Why are you surprised? I thought you liked this stuff. You've been watching it on your phone for ages." I didn't know what to say. Stammering, I mumbled, "But those things aren't real. And you're my stepmom." She looked at me with a puzzled expression and said, "Oh, come on, do you know how many would die to be in your shoes?" I was even more confused and asked, "What position?" She smiled and replied, "This," as she moved closer. At that moment, even her chest was in my face, and they were enormous. I'd never seen anything like it up close. She then took off my pants and said, "Let's play a game." She sat on my lap and teased, "Let's see how long you can last without doing anything." I couldn't resist. I lost immediately. I picked her up later beneath me, and well, you can guess what happened next. After that, it became an almost daily occurrence. With my father out of the picture, it didn't seem all that strange to me. The only odd part was the 40-year age gap, but honestly, with her, it felt like she was 20 all over again. Living with a woman who was 40 years older than me wasn't something I had ever envisioned. It was complicated, to say the least. For starters, she was my stepmom, and the age difference alone made everything feel surreal. There were times when I couldn't believe the situation I was in, yet there was also the thrill being with someone who had lived so much life and had so much experience brought a level of intensity I had never felt with girls my age. At first, the excitement of sneaking around the house, keeping it hidden from the rest of the world, made every glance, every touch electrifying. But it didn't take long for reality to set in. As exhilarating as our relationship was, it came with its own set of challenges. We had nothing in common when it came to the typical stuff: music, movies, or even how we viewed life. She would often talk about the past, reminiscing about the 80s and 90s, while I was more focused on what lay ahead for me. Then there was the constant fear of what people would think. The thought of telling my friends or family that I was involved with someone who could be my grandmother. Unthinkable. The idea of the whispers and judgment weighed on me every time I looked at her. I kept wondering, could this last? Was it worth it? Despite everything, though, there were real moments of connection. She understood things that no one else did, offering wisdom and insight that I'd never considered. She knew how to take care of me in ways beyond the physical. Life with her was strange, thrilling, and confusing all at once. Part of me couldn't help but wonder how long it could last before everything came crashing down. The secret didn't stay hidden for long, whether it was the small changes in how I acted or simply the fact that something so out of the ordinary couldn't be kept under wraps. My friends started noticing something was up. Maybe it was the way I started canceling plans, saying I was busy when in reality I was spending more time with her. Or maybe it was the fact that I stopped talking about girls my age. Whatever the reason, it wasn't long before one of my closest friends, Jake, pulled me aside. "Dude, something's off with you. You've been acting weird, and it's not just me. Everyone's noticed." "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes narrowing like he already had a hunch something wasn't right. At first I tried to laugh it off, shrugging like it was no big deal. But the thing about keeping a secret like that is the longer you hold it in, the more it eats away at you. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. So I told him everything about the addiction that spiraled out of control, about how my stepmom's behavior had changed, and about the line we had crossed, a line I never thought I would. Jake's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief and finally to shock. "Bro, your stepmom? She's like 40 years older than you. You can't be serious right now." I nodded, feeling a mix of guilt and defensiveness. Despite everything, I had already developed feelings for her. "It's not like that, man. It just happened, and honestly, I don't even know how to explain it. We're together now, and yeah, I get that it's weird, but I care about her." Jake remained silent for a moment, clearly trying to process what I had just told him. "Look, I'm not trying to judge, but you need to seriously rethink this. She's your stepmom, and the age difference is huge. Have you really thought about what this means for your life, for your future?" His words stung, but I couldn't shake how I felt about her. I know it's unconventional, but I'm happy. I've never felt like this before. She understands me in a way no one else does. Jake sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, unsure of how to get through to me. But have you thought about the long term? You're in your 20s, and she's in her 60s. What happens when you're 40 and she's almost 80? Or when your family finds out? People are going to think you've completely lost it. I hadn't let myself think that far ahead. I'd been so wrapped up in the intensity of it all that I avoided considering what the future might actually look like. I don't know, man. Maybe it won't last that long. Maybe it's just something happening right now, and I'll figure it out later. But Jake wasn't convinced. You can't just figure it out as you go. This is your life, and you're playing with fire. If this gets out, it's going to explode in your face. You need to rethink everything before it's too late. In the days that followed, I began hearing the same concerns from my other friends. They weren't as direct as Jake, but the worry was clear. They all said the same thing. I needed to step back, reconsider, and think about what I was doing. But by then, it was too late. I had already fallen for her. I was in too deep, and no amount of reasoning was going to pull me out. The truth was, I knew they were right. I knew this relationship was complicated, risky, and possibly doomed from the start, but something about it kept pulling me back. She made me feel understood in ways I had never experienced before. It wasn't just the physical connection, it went deeper than that. She had lived through things I hadn't, and there was a wisdom and care in how she treated me. I couldn't fully explain it, but I didn't want to let it go. The hardest part was knowing my friends cared about me and weren't wrong. This relationship had the potential to blow up in my face in more ways than one, but despite all of that, I couldn't walk away. Maybe I was already too far gone, or maybe I was just convincing myself that love could beat the odds. Either way, I had to make a decision, and I wasn't ready to let her go just yet.